Thank you very much, Marco. And indeed, the idea is today is to, after this presentation done in June by my colleague, was to go back to this topic, maybe go a bit through the slides we didn't really have time to address before, maybe give some more details about some of our thinking on various topics, and share the feedback we've received also from the various organizations who responded to our questions. And thank you very much already for that.
So she would change the slides.
All right. Sorry, still technical issues, but my colleague will help with the slides. Thank you. So first, just a small reminder that is always helpful to have about the difference between mis and disinformation and how we, because it has an impact on how we look at it and how we respond to it. So while misinformation and disinformation are both cases where we have false or misleading content that is shared, in the case of misinformation, it might not be done with the intention to harm others. It might actually be people who are well-intentioned and want to share information that they think is correct. Well, in the case of disinformation, there is a will and intention to deceive, which may cause public harm. So going back into the situation today, so of course, I think we're all acutely aware that the spreading of disinformation has a large public health impact, can undermine the trust in medicines and lead people to take decisions for their health that might actually be negative for them. And we have seen in the example of COVID-19 in particular that social media was used to amplify what the WHO calls an infodemic, where massive amounts of information were shared, disinformation and misinformation very easily spread. And since the presentation in June, we can tell you that actually the current situation has not improved, that with the new wave of COVID, we are seeing new waves of mis and disinformation. As Camilla also explained right now, the recent developments in the social media and in particular on X make the situation somehow even less predictable. Therefore, we think that there's work that's still to be done to improve the situation. So here we wanted to explain quickly, in a way, when and how we think we can act when exposed to mis and disinformation. So by this format, we try to show you a little bit somehow throughout the life cycle of a misinformation or a case of misinformation where we can act. So there is first a phase where we can act even before people are exposed to misinformation through pre-bunking and health media literacy actions. By pre-bunking, we mean in a way preemptive debunking of false claims. How do we do that? It's about training people to recognize the misinformation, in a way inoculate antibodies against future misinformation. So explain to people how to check facts, make sure that the trusted sources are available, that there is already information available online with the real facts, and in a way already sow the roots for the correct facts to be available. Then once people are exposed to misinformation, and we've really seen that in COVID-19, we need to continue to react. We need to engage, we need to communicate, we need to occupy the space with facts. And of course, after the exposure to misinformation, it's important to have debunking activities, to work with fact checkers, to correct the misconceptions. So in a way, it's a range of actions that need to go hand in hand for us to be able to act on various claims of mis and disinformation. Here I wanted to give you an example of what I just explained, with one specific case. You will have all seen that during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of mis and disinformation on vaccine safety in particular. A lot of people didn't, because we have publicly available data on the cases that are reported through vigilance and on the ADR reports website. And there was a lot of people not understanding really the data. So some people unintentionally misconceived the data. And then there was also real cases of disinformation with people sharing false information based on publicly available data, with false use of our logos, with all of this was happening quite massively during the pandemic. So how do you fight this? So in the phase of pre-bunking, in a way, we made sure that the facts were there. The facts were already available. The European Vaccination Information Portal is a good go-to source for factual information on vaccines. It actually has an interesting video that you might want to check, which explains to individuals how you need to check your sources before sharing, what you need to do before sharing. It also has a list of verified sources. We did a close monitoring of issues raised by the media, raised by the public, to make sure that we would address already these concerns proactively on our websites. And then we had a EU-wide information campaign on social media using a video on the safety of vaccines. In the heat of the campaign, then, of course, this is also when a lot of cases of mis and disinformation on vaccine safety happened. We live streamed our regular press briefings directly on the multiple platforms. We tweeted the facts in real time to make sure that what we were saying, that we were the owners of the content we were developing, that we were the owners of our message. And then we also replied to a number of questions from the public and the media. And in parallel to that, we had a very close work with fact-checking organizations. You will have seen that most media organizations today, the major ones, have fact-checking outlets attached to them. They are in touch with us extremely frequently to get the facts straight. And actually, we had so many questions on all the data that was circulating, all these false narratives that we were seeing, that we ended up organizing a workshop with the fact-checkers to give them all the information they needed to debunk the claims. And we also published in parallel some key facts on EMA's website. So it's just a little bit to show the various activities that are possible. Then going beyond COVID, so as Camilla explained a little bit earlier, so we're working now on more of a framework to tackle mis and disinformation, because we see that this is not going better. And actually, whenever we have a new topic, there is new interest and there is a new wave of mis and disinformation. So just as a sort of disclaimer, this is still exploratory work. This is something we're still working on, but that we're trying to construct going forward. But this is why also it's interesting to discuss it today with the whole group, to have various views and ideas. So basically, we thought we would explain how we see this possible framework in the future around 3 pillars. So of course, there's the monitoring pillar, where you do social listening, as Camilla also explained earlier. We do a lot of media monitoring, and we have data analytics, and we try to identify really the concerns from the creators, from the media, from the public, from any source really, because we find that this monitoring really helps, because you need to understand what kind of narratives people are susceptible to, and understand why they're susceptible to them, because it's the only way to understand how you can actually responses and information that will speak to them and that they will be able to as well. So it's all about understanding the behaviors. In terms of actions, so this is also what I explained a little bit before. So there's a number of actions that can be taken, be proactive, reaching directly the public, press briefings, interviews, social media, really make sure that we communicate the science behind the decision, and various other activities that are listed here, and we can go into more detail if needed. And then, of course, there's an important pillar, which is outreach. So it's really partnering with other organizations, sharing insights, sharing data, building up the expertise, maybe joint campaignings. So this is the kind of activities we're thinking of, because what is quite clear, and that we've learned during the COVID, is that there's not one action that can solve mis and disinformation. There's also not one organization that can solve mis and disinformation. We will not be able to do this on our own. So we've been working a lot with various organizations active in this field to make progress here, but of course, this will need to continue going forward. So here, we just thank you again for sharing your feedback on this topic. And what appears when looking at the feedback is that most of the organizations responded do have experience with the issue of mis and disinformation. Of course, I think any individual these days has an experience of it, unfortunately. It goes from some organizations saying they have more anecdotic experience to some organizations having really a full framework in place with various actions and escalation points in case mis and disinformation happens. But what is quite clear also from your responses, and which we really appreciate, is that there is a real willingness to engage at various levels, be it by disseminating information, raising awareness, maybe flagging misleading content to us, supporting with understanding of the audience, tailoring of messages, or sharing best practice. So there's really some ways that we can move forward from here. Actually, I'll stop here for today, because really what we would hope is to have a further discussion and thought from your side. So thank you for listening to me, and if you have any questions, thoughts, very happy to discuss further.